From the earliest days of the Roman Empire, men wondered what lay far beyond the deserts, mountains, and oceans that bounded their known world. Among these distant regions, none seemed more mysterious or enchanting than the land of India. To the Greeks and later to the Romans, India was often described as the last inhabited land to the east, beyond which stretched only wastelands of sand and endless ocean. Ancient writers spoke of it as a place of great abundance, nourished by mighty rivers and monsoon rains. Here it was said that elephants grew larger than any known elsewhere. Tigers, twice the size of lions, prowled the forests winged. Serpents soared across the skies, and enormous ants dug gold from beneath the earth. For centuries such tales reached the Mediterranean, only in fragments carried by travelers, merchants, and wandering storytellers. Much of it was a mixture of truth, myth, and exaggeration. But then came the conquests of Alexander the Great in the 4th century before Christ. Sweeping across the Persian Empire and pushing into the Punjab, Alexander opened the door to direct Greek encounters with India. His soldiers and historians brought back reports of dazzling biodiversity, great cities, and powerful rulers. For the first time, Europeans had seen with their own eyes what lay at the edge of their world. Though Alexander's own adventure ended with his death in Babylon, his successors maintained the connection. Greek garrisons remained in the northwest of India, and Greek kings carved out small kingdoms blending Hellenistic and Indian traditions. Trade began to flow across mountains and along the coasts of the Indian Ocean. Greeks were known in Sanskrit records as the Yavana, and they served not only as mercenaries but also as builders, benefactors, and rulers in parts of India. Out of this mingling of cultures rose the fascinating Indo-Greek states that left behind coins, art, and stories which bore both Greek and Indian symbols. During this time, a number of Greek observers tried to record what they saw. Their works, though mostly lost, survive in fragments quoted by later authors. Megasthenes, who served at the court of Chandragupta Maurya, founder of the Mauryan Empire, wrote extensively about Indian society, its geography, climate, economy, and customs. He described a land watered by countless rivers that gave rise to fertile fields and rich harvests. He marveled at elephants of extraordinary size, tigers that dwarfed lions, monkeys larger than dogs, and strange winged snakes that were said to glide through the night. Beneath the soil lay gold, silver, copper, and iron, while forests teemed with life unknown in the West. He also noted the discipline of Indian society. He wrote of kings who ruled vast armies supported by organized officials who managed provinces and villages. He described laws enforced strictly and courts established to uphold order. According to his account, Indian society was divided into groups or castes ranging from philosophers and priests to soldiers, cultivators, artisans, and herdsmen. The great city of Pataliputra, capital of the Mauryan dynasty, was said to rival even the splendor of Persia, with its walls, towers, gates, palaces, and gardens filled with birds and fish of marvelous size. Such descriptions, whether accurate or colored by imagination, left a deep impression upon the Mediterranean mind. India became a land of wonder but also of opportunity. When Rome in later centuries rose to dominate the Mediterranean world, it would inherit these connections from the Greeks. At first, Roman contact with India was indirect. During the early Republic, Rome's focus was on Italy, Carthage, and the western Mediterranean. But as her legions pressed eastward into Greece, Asia Minor, and Syria, Rome encountered kingdoms that already dealt with India. The Seleucid kings of Asia had waged wars in the east and maintained links across the Persian Gulf. The Ptolemaic rulers of Egypt had begun voyages across the Red Sea to tap into the riches of the Indian Ocean trade. Rome now stood poised to take their place. The real transformation came under Augustus, the first emperor. In the year 31 before Christ, he defeated his rival Mark Antony and Cleopatra at Actium and secured control of Egypt. With this conquest, Rome inherited the ports, roads, and networks that connected the Nile to the Red Sea and from there to the vast Indian Ocean. The Ptolemies had already experimented with this trade, but it was under Roman rule that it flourished on a massive scale. The Pax Romana brought stability to the Mediterranean, and merchants seized the chance to expand. Greek sailors had discovered how to use the monsoon, winds to cross directly from the Red Sea to India and back within a single year. What had once been a perilous, uncertain voyage became a regular highway of commerce. The geographer Strabo wrote that, while in earlier times only a handful of ships dared the journey by his day, over 120 vessels sailed from Egyptian ports to India each year. Through harbors such as Berenice and Myos Hormos, goods streamed across the desert to the Nile and thence to Alexandria and Rome. With this explosion of commerce, the Indians themselves took interest in their new neighbors. Embassies were sent westward, bringing letters, gifts, and exotic animals. According to ancient sources, Augustus received multiple Indian missions during his reign. One embassy came from a king named Porus, or perhaps a ruler claiming descent from the Porus known to Alexander. Another came from the port of Baragaza, led by a Buddhist monk. Others came from the southern kingdoms of the Chera and Pandya, bringing pearls, jewels, and even an elephant. One particularly vivid account tells of a meeting at Antioch around 20 before Christ. There, Augustus received Indian envoys who presented him with serpents, tortoises, and enormous birds. They carried a letter written in Greek on parchment, in which their king declared himself sovereign over hundreds of rulers, yet desirous of friendship with Caesar. Among their retinue was a man without arms who could use his feet with such dexterity that he strung bows and played instruments, astonishing all who watched. Another Indian sage named Zarmanochegus chose to end his life by self-immolation in Athens, declaring it to be the custom of his people. The Athenians so admired his act that they raised a tomb in his honor inscribed with his name. Such episodes, though strange to Roman eyes, testified to the seriousness with which India regarded these new ties. For Rome, the results were profound. Soon, Indian animals appeared in the circuses of the capital. Elephants, tigers, rhinoceroses, and serpents brought wonder and terror to the crowds. Exotic birds such as parrots filled Roman villas with color and sound. Ivory tortoise shells and precious woods became prized materials for furniture and decoration. Women of high status wore pearls from India and the Persian Gulf, while fine cottons and indigo dyes became fashionable across the empire. The spice trade in particular grew into one of the most important arteries of global commerce. Pepper, cinnamon, cardamom, and other herbs from India and beyond flavored Roman kitchens. Medicines, perfumes, and incense poured into the markets of the empire. Along with them came gems, diamonds, rubies, sapphires, onyx, amethysts, all coveted by Rome's elite. The demand was insatiable and the profits enormous. Yet this wealth also brought criticism. Philosophers and moralists complained that Rome was being corrupted by Eastern luxury. The Stoic Seneca railed against the pursuit of pearls and silk. Tacitus and Juvenal condemned the extravagance of Roman women who adorned themselves with jewels imported at such cost. Most seriously, officials worried about the drain on the treasury. For while India exported vast amounts of goods, it desired little from Rome in return. Roman wine glassware and a few metals found buyers, but far less in quantity than the spices, textiles, and gems flowing the other way. Pliny the Elder lamented that each year 100 million sesterces in silver left the empire to pay for luxuries from India, China, and Arabia. He saw this as a scandal and a danger to Rome's wealth. Despite these concerns, the trade continued for centuries. The link between Rome and India created one of the earliest examples of a truly globalized economy stretching from the Mediterranean across the Red Sea and Indian Ocean to the coasts of India and beyond to Southeast Asia. The contact influenced art, religion, and ideas as well. Roman coins have been found in Indian sites, while Indian ivory carvings have been unearthed in Pompeii. Words traveled along with goods. Religious ideas such as Buddhism reached as far as the Mediterranean, while stories and legends about India spread through Roman literature. The first contact between Rome and India was not the clash of armies, but the meeting of merchants, envoys, and storytellers. It was a contact that revealed two ancient civilizations gazing across vast distances toward one another, curious and eager to exchange. Rome sought the wealth of India, and India welcomed the chance to sell its goods and display its wonders. What began as myth grew into trade. What began as rumor became reality. The story of Rome and India reminds us that even in the ancient world, people were not isolated within their own borders. Oceans and deserts were not barriers but highways for those bold enough to cross them. The elephant in the Roman arena, the pearl on a matron's neck, the pepper on a senator's table were all testaments to this first contact between the Mediterranean and the subcontinent. And though empires would rise and fall, though Rome itself would eventually crumble, the bonds first forged in the days of Augustus would never entirely vanish. The meeting of Rome and India was one of the great turning points in the history of ancient global exchange, and its legacy can still be felt today.